I'm serious about my cereals. What type I'm consuming, making sure I try every single one, all of it. On workout days, I eat cereals with a lot of carbs and grains because it might help me lift my 15-pound dumbbells more easily. On non-workout days, I'm eating cereals which are low carb to keep it lean. I think that's how it works. And I've tried so many grain-free cereals that I've had to throw out. No joke. My immigrant parents would not be happy to hear this, but the ingredients in them create a real hard cereal and they do not soften up. Again, I'm not kidding. I've tried letting them soak for like 20 minutes and still, it was like shoving a spoonful of rocks into my mouth. I had to toss them. My curiosity has led me away from Magic Spoon, but I'm going back because it has what I need and it tastes great. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs per serving, which are only 140 calories each. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and low-carb. You can build your own box of tasty flavors. I've tried them all. Custom bundles can be built with cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, cinnamon, cookies and cream, and maple waffle. Cookies and cream and maple waffle were first introduced for a limited time, but they sold out extremely quickly, so they are back permanently in the starting lineup. Go to magicspoon.com/nodunks to grab a custom bundle of cereal and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code NODUNKS at checkout to save $5 off your order. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get your next delicious bowl of guilt-free cereal at magicspoon.com/nodunks and use the code NODUNKS to save $5. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode and for saving my teeth.
There was some spring cleaning in the Mellis household this weekend. First, Danielle and I lifted up our couch, did some cleaning underneath it. Danielle was stronger than me for sure this weekend. I wasn't feeling it, but we got it done. Then we threw out our kitchen sponge. Got to change that every once in a while.
Yep.
And then I got rid of some socks. God, it felt good.
Oh, yeah.
All the cheapies out. What remained? Some NBA socks, some unique ones, and a lot of Stance socks.
Woo.
For sure. Stance socks are frickin' quality. Quality designs, quality comfort, and I feel like quality when I slip them on the Tootsies. I'm going to be so happy with my decision in the coming weeks. Open up that drawer, pull out some Stance, put them on the feet. Yes! No more of those crap ones. I didn't go this far with my spring cleaning, but Stance has also expanded to the entire wardrobe. Check out Stance's super soft line of sweatpants, joggers, shirts, hoodies, hats, and more, now available in a full range of fits, prints, fabrics, and fun. Fits, prints, fabrics, and fun. That's fun
Fits,
to say.
prints,
fabrics, and fun. Fits, prints, fabrics,
Here, drop
fun.
a beat to that.
Fits, prints, fabrics, and fun.
We got the
Fits,
the prints, the fabrics, the fun.
the fits, the prints, the fabrics, the fun. Stance's philosophy is that you should never have to sacrifice your own individual style for the sake of comfort. And now, you don't have to. Whether you're relaxing around the house, working out at the gym, or running all over town, Stance delivers its signature softness and creativity in a full line of active apparel styles from toe to head. Stance has got you covered. Head on over to stance.com and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code NODUNKS at checkout to apply and enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. Stitch different.
Lights out and away we ayo. Welcome back to No Breaks, Formula One podcast from the No Dunks Inc. Classic Factory, proudly a part of the Athletic Podcast Network. I'm your host, Trey Kerby, and I'm joined today by our local F1 expert and a man who goes to great lengths to find us some pumpernickel toast, Graydon Gordian. Graydon, what's up, dude?
How's it going, everyone?
Of course, we've got our team principal here in the paddock, JD. Hello, there he is. Here we are. Whether you're joining us live here on the Slipstream team on YouTube, listening to the podcast later, thanks for joining us. we're getting things straightened out here with our YouTube channel. Should be launching that officially next week. New rules and regulations for the new YouTube channel, just like there is with new cars. But Graydon, you came through with the toast, man.
It was hard to find. I had to go, search all over town to find just the finest quality pumpernickel. I thought to myself,
beautiful shot.
I would want what I didn't just want to get any old pumpernickel. I thought what would be up to Toto's exacting standards.
Well, I imagine he's eating the finest of pumpernickel. I'm gonna take a quick taste. I'm not gonna eat this through the whole thing.
Okay, no,
it's been sitting for like 10 minutes now, so I think we'll probably maybe a little dry, but I can see why he orders it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's toast. That's toast, no doubt about it.
Inarguably bread.
Yeah, inarguably bread. Great way to start, JD. I'm sure you're loving it. Anyways, we're eating toast over here. This is going to be a thing now.
I don't know if I'd eat that like every morning though.
No?
I mean, I like toast.
I mean, it's just like any toast to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
But if you had an egg, come on, you'd be dipping your egg in that, no problem.
Okay. No, fair enough.
Yeah. Toto, he's a man who appreciates excellence. Maybe he's got the line on the best pumpernickel. This is also a rye pumpernickel. I don't know if that's throwing us off.
I think they're all rye pumpernickel. I think pumpernickel is like a form of rye.
Clearly, I'm not educated.
Yeah.
Inarguably, he's eating better pumpernickel than this pumpernickel.
It's definitely a form of rye.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the most fragrant of the rye breads.
Pumpernickel?
JD's not a pumpernickel fan.
I'm not. I don't. So occasionally, like once in a blue moon,
Yeah.
every 3 years or something.
Every 3 years.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a long cycle.
Never something I would. If it's on a list of what kind of toast would you like?
What are you going with? Are you like a sourdough man, like a country white? You want a little like...
I mean, honestly, I would go rye. I would go like a light rye. But
Yeah.
Light rye.
just the dark rye. It's almost, and it's weird because I love Guinness, but it's just so malty.
Yeah, it is malty.
Yeah, so not my thing.
It is malty.
Once in a dark brown moon.
That's right.
Appears. I think I'm going to start ordering it as a bit. Like, if we're out to brunch, I'll definitely, if
Like,
it's
start
pumpernickel
making a
toast, I'm
thing.
going to definitely order it.
Yeah.
But we're going to
sure.
hear, we do like talking about bread. But we are here to talk about racing. We had our first race of the season over the weekend. The boys were back on the track in Bahrain. So we're going to give out a few awards while we break everything down. Graydon, our first up award, topic, whatever you want to call it. What was the biggest headline, biggest takeaway from the Bahrain GP?
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
For this?
I'm
race,
ready.
guys? Ferrari is back. That is right. That is right. The boys in red are back. We are back. Woo! I mean, we called it. We felt good going in. I was bullish on him, and gosh, did they deliver. Leclerc, for all intents and purposes, led wire to wire. I think not technically because it won pit stop. I think Sainz briefly took over first, but maintained his lead throughout. So had some great, and did so under a lot of pressure from Verstappen. Had some great battles out there and showed a lot of poise and managed to keep his lead at the end of any given lap where he was overtaken. Sainz looked great. Sainz, who was being very negative and I think really kind of hating on his performance, but the reality is he did a great job fending off Perez and putting himself in position to jump into second when things went awry for Red Bull. In general, the car looked great. It looked fast. It looked fast in the corners in particular. All of the Ferrari-powered cars in general looked fast. It seems like they are prepared to fight for the title this year.
Yeah, it was honestly a dominant win for Ferrari in this one. A 1-2, like you mentioned. Leclerc also won pole. He also had the fastest lap. Do they call that the Triple Crown? Is that what they call it in racing? I don't know, but they should. If you win all three things.
The Triple Crown of motorsports is a different thing. It's winning the Indy 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, and Le Mans in a career.
All right, well, maybe a tic-tac-toe. If you get max points for the whole weekend, they got to have a name for that.
That's
like a clean sweep, maybe a tic-tac-toe. But yeah, they were incredible. And literally Sainz in his post-race press conference said, Ferrari is back. They're properly back. He said that. I love that when we actually hear like an athlete say things that us dumb media people are saying. But yeah, I mean, Ferrari was great. The question was going to be, are they as good in testing as they had, or are they good on race day as they had been in testing? And it was honestly a blowout. Like Verstappen did a good job keeping it close. There were some tense moments, but eventually, it looked like Red Bull was settling in to finish happily P2. Like, all right, we're just going to have to finish second here. Like you're saying, Sainz was pretty hilarious with how hard he was on himself. You know, he finished, I think, 6 seconds behind Leclerc, but that was maybe a little bit. It would have been longer if they were actually racing there, but I thought he did fine. But that just shows you how good Leclerc was, that he outclassed Sainz as much as he did on a day when Ferrari was clearly the best team out there.
Yeah, every time, like we mentioned, that Verstappen and Leclerc had some great battles out on track a couple of those earlier laps after their first pit stop. But the reality is once Leclerc got out in front of him and put that second gap in between them, and Verstappen wasn't in DRS range anymore, he was leaving him behind. He was steadily chipping away seconds every single lap, building up that gap big enough that they were able to cover off on the undercut for all the subsequent pit stops. Now, they had the race in control. They were able to respond to everything Red Bull tried to do to undermine them. In general, I think they ran a terrific race. I think it bodes very well for their season. I think in some sense Red Bull underperformed. Well, in the end, I think they underperformed a lot. But even during the race, that there's probably a lot of opportunities for them to find some pace that they were missing out there. So it's not that I think that we've just seen the beginning of what will be unbridled Ferrari dominance. I don't think it's that. I don't think we're just going to see them rattle off win after win after win after win. But they are absolutely going to be competing for the top step. They're absolutely in the fight for the championship. They are officially back.
They're officially and properly back, and at least after one race, it seems like they've replaced Mercedes amongst the top two. And maybe we'll get lucky and there'll actually be 3 competitors here for the championship. But I thought it was pretty interesting, after Verstappen tried the undercut, they told him to do a slow out lap, because apparently you're going to have to do slow out laps on these tires right now. And he's like, I could have gone faster. But even Red Bull was like, it wouldn't have mattered if you went faster on the outlap. Leclerc was still going to catch Verstappen, and that's certainly what it felt like. As soon as he was able to get ahead, he was like, he's gone. He's just gone.
Yeah, it didn't seem like that was a... First of all, Verstappen's outlaps were faster than he realized. They actually were talking about how the times he was doing those outlaps were very quick. But also when, Verstappen was multiple times went in, coming out of turn 1, was in the lead on both, lap 17 and 18, and Leclerc set him up perfectly to overtake him again. Leclerc had the faster pace over the back half of the lap. I'm not sure that that's a lead that Verstappen would have been able to maintain even if he had jumped out in front. I'm just not confident of that. Of course, you'd rather be out in front and be able to defend, but at the end of the day, Leclerc and the Ferrari were the best driver and the best car out there and very much deserved the win.
Yeah, it was a big-time tic-tac-toe day, as everybody's saying around the F1 world these days.
But those aren't the only headlines. What would you say is the biggest headline of the weekend?
Red Bull blew it is my headline from the weekend. It looked like Red Bull, like we're saying, was happy to finish P2 with Verstappen, and then Perez was probably coming in P4. But Max Verstappen pitted on lap 48. He came back out, and he was like instantly unhappy on the radio. So unhappy that it was almost hard to make out the radio because it was kind of peaking. The levels were going off. There was some bleeps, no doubt about it. He had steering problems right away. Eventually it turned into power problems around lap 54. And the weirdest part to me is that every time Max would get on the radio, pit lane would be like, there's no problem. There's nothing wrong. You're just going to have to keep going. And it's like, okay, maybe he lost his power steering. I think Brundle said he's going to have to go into Nigel Mansell mode here and just gut his way through it. But every time he was like radioing back to his engineers, they're like, there's nothing wrong. Clearly there was something wrong because Max's car just stopped. A few laps later, he DNF'd, got worse because the same thing happened to Perez a couple of laps later. His car stopped going around turn 1 on the final lap, so a DNF for Perez as well. No points at all for Red Bull on a weekend when they were surely the second fastest car on the track. What all went wrong? I know they said they had a bent steering rod after a pit stop, which I thought was just weird. It seems like people are just ironing out how they're going to have to do pit stops again this year. But then there was major engine problems as well.
Yeah, so the bent steering rod happened on that final pit. They dropped it, and I guess it is a risk that you would bend a steering rod there. You can see over on kind of the left side of the screen, the right of Max's car. It gets a little bit bent. So that's not ideal, but it seemingly wasn't a terminal issue. And in fact, it's pretty impressive that Max stayed as competitive as he did with this issue going on. But from there, they had a fuel issue. I guess this was a byproduct of the fact that they never ran the car in low fuel end of race conditions during testing, which is something that I guess they probably should have done in retrospect. But both, Perez and Verstappen suffered from the same issue, which, I believe has to do with the circulation of the fuel near kind of under certain temperatures inside the car. It's, so that's definitely, not ideal, something they're going to need to fix. It's an interesting question. Can it be fixed within the next week? Or are they going to get towards the end of Saudi Arabia and be asking themselves, is this going to recur? It does seem like there's multiple engine issues to be figured out, because my understanding what happened with Gasly isn't the same issue, but unless we forget, 3 out of the 4 Red Bull powered vehicles didn't cross the finish line. So that's not ideal, and they're definitely going to need to figure that out. So we'll see whether that, I presume over time that's a reliability issue that they'll solve, but it's something that I imagine they're furiously working on back at the factory at this very moment.
Yeah, we talked a ton about the different shapes of the wings and the side pods and the floors, but they did change the fuel. This ethanol apparently burns hotter, especially once it gets down to low fuel loads, which is when your car is supposed to be at the fastest. And I mean, I barely know anything about the shapes of the cars, so knowing about the percentages of the fuel, I know literally nothing about. But with the way that 3 of the Red Bulls just faltered at the end of the race, that seemed to me like something that doesn't happen in Formula One anymore, especially considering during the race, broadcasters were saying it's been a long time since we've had a race with no retirements, and then very quickly thereafter, 3 quick retirements.
Yeah, it's a funny one because there's actually a lot of standardized parts in that part of the car, a lot of things that, aren't, it's not on the various teams to design, but they are able to change their placement and how it's overall constructed, and that's going to affect the temperature, of those parts and what's inside of them. So it's obviously it's a complicated problem. I don't have the foggiest idea how you fix such a thing. I'm not an engineer at that level, or any level rather. But I
don't know, man. I used to see you working on your motorcycle there when we lived at the same place out in the parking lot.
Trying to tell him, man. You just need fuel, spark, and compression. That's easy. And then that makes it go. That's how an engine works. It just goes forward after that. So.
All right. So those are our big takeaways. Ferrari is back. Red Bull blew it. Those were the top stories, no doubt, from a fun first weekend of Formula One. Let us know in the comments what your takeaways are here. We're going to move on to our next topic. Graydon, what was most surprising to you from the Bahrain GP?
I'm actually going to go with Alfa Romeo's overall performance and Valtteri Bottas in particular. Valtteri had an awesome weekend, did very well in qualifying, held on to be competitive in the race itself, started on the grid next to Lewis Hamilton ahead of George Russell. That must have been an awesome feeling for him to do that after everything he's experienced over the last year. I think that for me, I was super impressed by that, and I just genuinely didn't expect it. I didn't think Alfa Romeo would be at the very, very back of the pack, but I expected multiple midfield teams to probably be outpacing them. And even though I've always been a bit of a Valtteri apologist, it's a lot of it has to do with the car, and I didn't know if he'd be able to make up for that gap between it and teams I thought would be in front of them. So I loved it. I was super impressed. I hope that means that we're in for a year of competitive, Valtteri performances and what is a very complicated and unexpected midfield competition. The fight for third, the fight for fourth, fifth, it seems wide open right now. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I was super impressed with Alpha and Valtteri. At times it seemed like he was kind of functioning as the lead blocker for Zhou Guanyu, and they were kind of both going through the field together, which I thought was really cool to see. And then obviously starting next to Hamilton, that's just very funny to me after the way things ended the previous season. And I had finished Drive to Survive season 4 the night before, so then the night of qualifying, so to know they're all qualifying there together, that was great. Most surprising for me, One part would be Mercedes finished in P3, P4. Sure. They were in no man's land for most of this race, kind of racing their own races, which is one of the weirdest things for any team, but especially for Mercedes, who has been on top of the table for quite some time here. But suddenly they lucked into a P3, P4, which Toto sounded very, very surprised as well. They said they were treating this race basically like a test. Once they got out of competition, they were trying to figure out their porpoising issues and if they can actually find some performance. It didn't happen. They tried a hard tire, and everybody's like, why are you trying a hard tire? Toto said post-race, it was like sticking your hand in a toilet. So I don't think they'll be going back to the hard tire like that again. So that was a minor surprise to me. But the biggest surprise, one I was feeling good about, Graydon, what a performance by Haas and Kevin Magnussen.
Oh, my gosh.
Third in the constructors after one race. After Magnussen finished P5. It was P11 for Mick Schumacher. It looked like he was going to maybe get points there at the end. But we were high on Haas in the preseason. It felt a little unfounded until Sunday. Things looked great.
Incredible. We were high on Haas, right? We thought that they could battle back into the midfield. Nobody thought that they would be P5 and Magnussen, and let's be real, I get that they got some help from the Red Bull, DNFs to get that P5, but he was always in the mix for the points the whole race. It's not
P7 would have been nice.
Yeah, it's not as if he just lucked into some points because a bunch of things went awry. He was right there the whole time, super competitive, incredible driving from him. Mick also looked good. Lest we forget, I know he ends P11 and was probably cruising in P13 for most of the time, but that's a far cry from 19 and 20 and 5 seconds back of everybody or a lap down of everybody. He looked, the car looks great. I think both the drivers look competent. Magnussen is a huge upgrade from Mazepin. It's almost impossible to overstate how much better he is out there. I think they look great, and I'm really excited for what they're going to do this year. I hope that as the season wears on and teams continue to evolve the car and more development goes into them, that Haas can maintain that lead and maintain that competitiveness and stay in the mix, and that they've got the budget and the infrastructure to stay in the fight for points all season long.
Does last season's performance still affect things for Haas this year, since they finished at the bottom of the standings last year? Does that mean that they're going to have, obviously they'll have less of a salary cap, if you will, to improve their car, but is that going to seriously affect them as we go on further this season?
It's hard to know what their financial situation is going to be. It definitely affected them in the sense that they didn't get the same payout as some more competitive teams. But at the same time, there's other advantages too, like teams that are further down the standings get more wind tunnel time. That was a big advantage.
That was
a advantage actually that Ferrari got as well, finishing P6 2 years ago, and then P3 last year. They actually had a lot more wind tunnel time than Red Bull and Mercedes comparatively. So Haas has had the same advantages and has been able to therefore kind of more intricately study the aerodynamics, think more about it and make the sorts of leaps that they've made. So, hopefully that there's benefits and there's drawbacks, and they've tried to instate some rules that give a competitive edge to the people at the bottom of the grid, but we'll see. I don't know.
Another surprise for me was that Esteban Ocon was so much faster than Fernando Alonso there for the Alpines throughout the race. Ocon finished P7, and I think it was P9 for Alonso. And it was like Ocon was on his heels almost all the time, to the point where they were switching the cars on team orders at one point. I think Alonso is the number one driver for Alpine, but it's probably a toss-up between the two of them. Obviously, Ocon is a little bit younger guy, had the race win last year. I think in Drive to Survive, he said he was watching Alonso drive when he was 9 years old. I was like, wow, I didn't realize Fernando's that old. He looks great for his age, but Ocon definitely had the pace on Sunday.
Yeah, maybe I feel like this is kind of a classic Alonso thing, which is when you mix up the cars. He has such an idiosyncratic driving style that it takes him a little bit of time to get used to a new car, and then once he puts the puzzle pieces together, he's really quick. Certainly that was kind of the case last year as well. He complained a lot about needing to kind of sort it out. So I wonder if it's just a little bit of that the new driving style, the new way these cars handle, if it's just forcing some of the guys to adjust yet again. So I don't know, but it's we'll see. It's also one race. We'll see how Alonso performs other times. In general, the Alpine didn't looked like it probably made the jump that they had hoped to make. Back when Alonso was with Renault, quite a while ago now, over a decade ago, they were very, very competitive, right at the top of the standings. And that's where I think their aspiration is to get back to. It doesn't look like they're there this year.
Yeah,
so.
5th in the Constructors after one race, just a point behind Alfa Romeo. So that'll be interesting to watch because, if they're both going to be a little bit better, that's exciting as well. How about most disappointing, Graydon? I think there's a pretty easy choice here.
It's McLaren, right? This is
it was terrible.
Catastrophe.
It was so bad.
A catastrophe.
We're in a fantasy league together. I don't know how you got me into a Formula One fantasy league. I think it was like 30 minutes left before qualifying, and the group chat said, "Hey, let's do fantasy." It was the perfect timing. Kids were watching Octonauts. I was ready to watch them qualifying, so I put Norris, Ricciardo, and McLaren as my constructors. So I haven't checked the standings, but I imagine I'm last. I have to be last.
That
at
was
this
rough.
point.
I had a pretty good, for a minute there I was cruising because I had Leclerc, Sainz, and Perez. And right after Verstappen, DNF'd, I thought, oh my gosh, and Ferrari was my team. I was like, I'm gonna have the whole podium. It's gonna be my fantasy team. It didn't pan out, but nonetheless, yeah. McLaren looked terrible. They looked bad in qualifying. Ricciardo looked really slow, but Norris didn't do well either. I think qualifying behind Mick Schumacher. I think if I remember correctly, I think Schumacher got 13th, and
you might be right.
And Norris got 14th. So that's certainly a bit of a shocker. And the race things went from bad to worse. There was one point where Norris was, he was pitting and his pit window was between 20th and a lap down, right? Was getting, he was coming back out way, way behind the race. Ricciardo never did anything to make up for his bad start. In general, this is a catastrophe. I don't know whether the shortcomings that the car has are things that can be overcome within a season. This might be a very tough year.
You think it's going to be that bad?
I don't know.
I thought Russell said during preseason testing that Ferrari looks like a team to beat and McLaren looks like a team to beat.
Well, that...
They were beat. They were certainly beat on Sunday.
I will say that it's possible that what they're struggling with, I don't know exactly what they're struggling with. A similar team, Aston Martin, also a Mercedes-powered team, which, by the way, every Mercedes-powered team other than Mercedes looks bad. Williams, McLaren, and Aston Martin did not look good out there. So there's question. At some point, you have to ask: has the Mercedes power unit just been, have the other teams caught up or surpassed it? But also, Aston Martin in particular was really struggling with porpoising, and the things they did to help with that were what caused them to lose. I think they said as much as 3/4 of a second. I don't know if McLaren is struggling with similar things. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but there's a lot to figure out. There's a lot to figure out to get back into the points, much less into the battle for podiums. So.
Yeah, it was, on one hand, it's great to hear porpoising is still around, even though the season has started. But on the other hand, like you're saying, they have a ton to work on. At one point, they were basically telling Ricciardo and Norris, be easy on the brakes. We don't know how to cool them down the right way, which is similar to what I think Vettel was hearing. Hülkenberg maybe was hearing over the radio for Aston Martin. At one point, they showed a late McLaren pit stop, and their car was wiggling on the jack. I don't think it's supposed to do that.
I guess some of these teams, it's just a lot. There's a lot to figure out. Part of me wonders whether this is a byproduct of them overcommitting to the fight for third last year and not putting sufficient time in the development of the car this year. That where a lot of teams were pivoting and focusing almost the entirety of their energy on 2022, McLaren was a little bit too committed to solving last year's problems and trying to maintain third. I don't know. That's speculative. I can't be positive that that's the case, but it certainly feels like where some of the other teams unlocked something really special, McLaren it looks lost out there.
We mentioned the Red Bull bent steering rod that happened after a pit stop, and this odd thing with the McLaren rocking back and forth. Were you expecting that to be like a problem here with teams having to kind of start from scratch on pit stops? Like that seems to me something that you could at least practice and know what you're doing right there. But there was a couple of little mistakes that we saw.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of roughness. Different tires, different tire size. Maybe that's throwing people off. You also saw teams, again, do better, not to just, compliment Ferrari even further, but their pit stops looked super sharp. They were very fast, which is not something they are historically known for. In fact, it's probably quite the opposite. As a Ferrari fan, I'm always stressed going into the pits, thinking they're going to blow it. It definitely feels like just teams, you've just jumbled everything up and, thrown it back out there. And a lot of the characteristics or things that we associated with teams last year are a little bit off kilter right now. So.
Yeah, definitely the case. Moving on, what was your favorite moment from this race? An overtake, a line from somebody?
It's probably, for me, it's the lap 17 and 18, Leclerc and Verstappen out in front. That's was kind of delivering on the promise of, what the season was supposed to allow for: tighter racing, really competitive racing. That was both hard and clean racing between two guys who, have been known to come together in the past. Leclerc and Verstappen have had their fair share of incidents, and both have been willing to get their elbows out or do things that you might frankly call reckless. They were, I thought, doing very hard, respectful, competitive racing, which is what you want to see out there, and was great. Those were super fun moments, I thought. That, and I think at the end, I don't think when it happened, I don't think I realized that it was Red Bull was, or Verstappen was cruising for the DNF, but Sainz overtaking him into second seemed like an awesome moment. It was like, oh my gosh, Ferrari's going to get a 1-2. It was kind of the, he had been struggling to hunt him down. So that both of those were super fun moments in the race, I thought.
Oh yeah, big time bounce back moments for Ferrari. Like you're saying, at the end, it was very cool to see Sainz go into second place, especially not knowing exactly what was going on with Red Bull at the time. But man, that battle between Leclerc and Verstappen, like that was incredible to see the way Leclerc, as he mentioned after the race, was basically letting Verstappen get through so that he would have DRS to then be able to pass again. And the fact that it kind of came through 3 different times on this race, like had one go at it, didn't work. Had a second go at it, didn't work. By the third time, Max was like, all right, my tires are gone. That was almost where the race was won right there. I mean, probably Ferrari's going to outpace Red Bull on the whole for the day. But the fact that Leclerc was able to outduel Verstappen, man, that was awesome to watch. You're always telling me this guy's a championship driver, and that to me right there is like, he's playing mind games with Verstappen, who's the current champion right there. Impressive.
He's certainly, I think, Leclerc probably quieted a lot of doubters, and I think showed people why Ferrari and Mattia, Binotto have always said he has a super high ceiling and he has true championship potential, right? Was like him hanging in there, being tough, racing hard, showing true pace when he was out in front. Yeah, I think you're right also. The race was, I'm not going to say one right there, as there's plenty of race left, but when Verstappen locked up and then kind of cooked his tires on that one, and that forced him, I think, to pit even earlier on the next one or lose pace towards the end of that stint. That really hurt. When he went back into the pits, the gap was even bigger than the first time around. So I think that just made it even harder to try to pull off the overtake of that second set of pits. So that was definitely a critical moment.
Oh yeah. Brilliant driving from Leclerc. A real the game has changed. We got a different championship competitor up here. I thought that was great. Couple lines I really liked in this one. Max Verstappen had mentioned after I think preseason testing, nobody's giving it full beans out there. He said nobody's giving it full beans, which if we were starting this podcast this year, it would be called full beans instead of no breaks. So maybe that's like the subtitle, no breaks, full beans. Anyways, they're talking all about that. And like we're saying, Verstappen is trailing Leclerc for the most of this. But I think it's when Leclerc is in the pits right now. So it's kind of important for Verstappen to make up as much time as he can while Leclerc's just sitting there. And Crofty says, Verstappen's got to give it as much beans as possible. He was going in on the beans talk, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are Brits. They love beans.
They love beans.
Beans for breakfast.
Beans for breakfast. Throw some beans on some pumpernickel toast.
Yeah.
We were brainstorming. Maybe we could do a full beans challenge. Don't know what it is, but it'll involve eating a full can of beans at some point.
There's going to be beans on this show before the end of the season.
Another great moment. We talked about Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas starting next to each other, even though they're not teammates anymore. They seem to have fun being competitors on the race course, and then afterwards, they're doing their out lap, their cool down lap. You can see a little thumbs up between Lewis to Valtteri right back. Lewis put something up on his Instagram about Valtteri, so some still respect there. They had quite the partnership, and it seemed like Lewis is happy because he's still one of the greats, and Valtteri's happy that he gets to maybe a little bit less pressure with Alfa Romeo, and he gets to be the big dog there. Good stuff. Yeah. We want to hear from you. Let us know your favorite moments. We're going to move on to our best new livery. Got to finally see these cars officially out on the course. Who do you like this year, looks-wise?
I've got 2 faves. One, I think the Alpha looks sharp.
Yep.
I think they did a nice job with that. I think they did a nice job kind of taking the design identity of Alfa Romeo more broadly and applying it to the car. And then I think this may be a little bit of a hot take, but I was liking the pink Alpine, the Panthère Rose. The little Pink Panther French style used to be, the old Force India look or whatever, the Racing Point look. I liked Alpine in it. I thought it's sharp. I love pink as a color. It's a beautiful color. I thought the car looked fun.
Pink looks good on anyone, including JD right now. But yeah, I'm with you. I love that the pink car is back on the track, but it really, really throws me off that it's Alpine.
Because you think it must be Racing Point.
It must be Racing Point. It must be Force India. It's definitely not Alpine, who last year looked like Williams, and the year before were Renault, black and yellow, and now suddenly they're a pink team. It just throws me off.
They are all over the place. They are all over the place with the colors, so that is fair.
Yeah. But it does look good. Another one that I thought was interesting is that Lewis Hamilton has taken the kind of second driver look for Mercedes this year, and it's only because he wants to go full neon, I'm convinced. He gets the neon camera bar on the top. He gets a neon 44. It all matched his neon helmet, like little neon parts on his wheel covers as well. It definitely threw off the broadcasters at one point. They thought it was Russell just because they're used to the second driver not being Lewis Hamilton. For Mercedes. And I'll say McLaren looked good. We just didn't get to see him very much.
Yeah, I do think the
McLaren
McLaren looks good.
Back.
They just,
What about the Ferrari car? I saw some people weren't crazy about the Ferrari design. Too much black, perhaps?
Yeah, too much black. Our good friend Kate, who was kind of hating on it. She thought the red was like too blood red. Like she wanted that bright Ferrari red, that like Testarossa red. And I get that. I think it's probably more fun when they've got that like 90s red. But I think it's fine. What I'm not a fan of is they've got the little Italian flag colors on there. I feel like that's like an unnecessary detail. Maybe that, I don't know. They're very proud of their Italian heritage. But I've actually always thought the Ferrari car, while the color is cool, is kind of a mess. Because I feel like I'm gonna hate here for a second, but they do the least good job with like elegantly placing logos on the car. They're all over the place. Like they're totally
usually so small and tasteful,
Yeah, right. Well, I just mean some teams like integrate them into the car more. They put them in. I actually think McLaren does an okay job like making the logos kind of fit into the broader design scheme. And then Ferrari, it's just like a big like shell or like a big UPS. I don't know if UPS is still on there this year, but it's like just slapped on there. And I always think it looks like a little sloppy, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. Also funny that McLaren has the Google Chrome logo on their wheels. So I thought that was pretty funny.
And the little Android bot, I think, or something like a bot somewhere. It's fun.
Yeah, not a great weekend for the Green Bubble crew, unfortunately. How about driver-wise? Who was the best debut? We had one new driver on the course in Zhou Guanyu, but, Magnussen was back. Unexpectedly, Nico Hülkenberg was back. And obviously we had teams switching up their driver lineups as well. Anybody impress you?
Yeah, I mean, Zhou Guanyu scoring points in his first ever race is obviously very impressive.
Huge,
not easy to do. Even if the car is competitive, more competitive than expected, there's no promise that you're going to be able to get out there and manage it and manage the pressure and I don't know, very impressive stuff. Certainly suggests that this guy is going to be competitive. I think at times he was out there battling with Mick Schumacher, which was fun because they used to battle on the F2 grid. And so seeing them back fighting each other kind of wheel to wheel was very cool. That and right, I mean K-Mag is incredible what he came out and did. And cold, let's also be real. The thing with Magnussen is he wasn't driving a car, wasn't driving an F1 car like 2 weeks ago.
That's wild. That's
so
honestly
like,
crazy.
that's awesome, right?
Yeah, and I thought Albon did a nice job as well for Williams. He definitely was better than Latifi. Disappointing weekend for Latifi. Here's a good debut for you, Graydon. The new 2022 cars. It looked like what they said was going to happen from these regulations came true in the first Grand Prix of the season. The cars were following closely. As we were talking about earlier, we had that great battle between Leclerc and Verstappen, where they're able to both pass each other, but also both stay close enough to each other so that they can continue to have the same battle down, for laps further down the field. All the cars look different too. Like all the side pods are different. Mercedes is very skinny and also kind of looks like a pop can that's been stepped on a little bit, I think. But I don't know. There's just a lot of variety out there on the track. And more importantly, it feels like, hearing from the drivers, hearing from the commentators, they're like, oh, what they said was going to happen is actually happening. The cars are able to stay close to each other, and there might be some more overtaking this season.
No, I think that's right. I think the cars are largely working. I think the other thing that's just cool about it, and we talked a little bit about this last week, is a big anxiety coming into this year was that the regulations were so restrictive that all the cars would come out looking the same and they would be iterations on like a very similar theme, when in fact you saw the exact opposite. You saw radically different design directions, right? And that is really cool, and I think it's producing really interesting outcomes on the track, and we'll see things evolve really interestingly. You're going to see big evolution over the course of this year in the cars. I mean, and it's just an exciting time because I feel like there's so many unknowns from here on out. Like there's going to be so many changes up and down the grid over the rest of the year, and it'll be fun. So
no doubt about it. Our last topic, Graydon, I want you to give me your top 3 drivers of the day for the Bahrain GP.
I'm going to say Charles Leclerc at 1.
Blowout. Come on.
He just looked great. He hooked it up from end to end. He absolutely looked like a championship caliber driver. I'm going to say Kevin Magnussen because, let's be real, he crushed it coming in from nowhere. And then, my biggest surprise and my, near and dear to my heart, old Terry, Valtteri.
Old Terry
Bottas. He's looking great. He said Valtteri, came up there. Bottas looked good, and I very impressed with that. Anybody else that jumped out at you is, possibly in that top 3?
I think Leclerc and Magnussen are the 1 and 2. Like, Leclerc is a blowout, easy driver of the day. He even won the pole pretty easily. And, I remember we were talking about this last year. There are so many times where Hamilton would, blow away the field, and he wouldn't even finish in the top 3 in driver of the day because you're like, okay, whatever. It's Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. It's going to happen. Leclerc deserved it. He was the best driver, and he was in the best car, so shout out to that. Magnussen, like you said. And then I'll give a little tip of the cap to Yuki Tsunoda. Picked up 8 places while driving. I think he had the most overtakes on the day, and he was the only Red Bull engine to finish. So good stuff from Yuki. And I think he might have also been the only driver we haven't mentioned thus far. So nice to get him in here as well. Hey, that's right. It's Short King Spring. I just saw that on the internet as well.
I think one thing about Leclerc and this Leclerc winning driver of the day is a bit, I feel like, LeBron on the Lakers for the All-Star game or something. It's like anytime Ferrari ever does well, they have a great shot at winning driver of the day because there's so many fans out there. It's a fan vote, and they just crush it. And they're all of those Ferrari fans are just sitting there on their phones, just waiting to
let's go.
We
don't need to wait until the last lap.
Yeah, totally.
But we want to hear from you on all of this. Your drivers of the day, your favorite new liveries, best debut, most surprising, all that stuff. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, talking news. Stick around. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Relationships take work. A lot of us will drop anything to go help someone we care about. We'll go out of our way to treat other people well, but how often do we give ourselves the same treatment? Y'all know I love a hammock, and I did get some hammock time in yesterday. But some people don't like hammocks, Lee. And sometimes a hammock isn't enough. This month, BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to take care of your most important relationship, the one you have with yourself. Whether it's hitting the gym, hitting the hammock, or even trying therapy, you are your greatest asset, so invest the time and effort into yourself like you do for other people. BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. So give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. Right now, No Dunks listeners can get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/nodunks. That's BETTERHELP.com/nodunks.
All right, it's my time to talk about Trade Coffee, and I've got a coffee bag that I just got from them right here. I'm just opening it up. This is Broad Street Coffee. I like this one so much, I ordered it again because it's so good. Fresh out of my compostable bag there that I just tossed to the side. I love that. This one from Boston. No Dunks fan actually works at this roaster. I love this freaking coffee. I find it hard to express what I like about a coffee.
Did a Beantown boy bag those beans?
He bagged these beans. Broad Street beans right here. It's Finca Buenos Aires, as it's called. But it's from El Salvador. Strange, huh? Anyway, these every single roaster that Trade Coffee works with is an independent roaster, ethically sourced beans, shipping is free, and I love their subscription process. Again, I don't know how to express exactly what I like in a coffee, but when I know I grab a bean that I like, I reorder it. These beans are so popular in my house. My father-in-law will come over and say, "Hey, you have the good beans?" And I say, "Yes, sir. These are the good beans right here." Because I reorder them. Their subscription is no hassle. You skip shipments if you want it, change your frequency, or cancel at any time. Their deliveries are timely, baby. Roasted, delivered, fresh, right away. And for our listeners, right now, Trade Coffee is offering a total of $20 off your first 3 bags when you go to drinktrade.com/nodunks. To get started, take their quiz at drinktrade.com/nodunks and start your journey to your perfect cup. That's drinktrade.com/nodunks for $20 off your first 3 bags.
Wedding season is upon us here in the South, and Daddy needs a new suit. So good timing, Indochino. It's like you know me. It's like you really know me. Indochino makes high-quality, custom-fitted suits, shirts, and casual wear, all at a surprisingly affordable price. You can customize everything from suits and shirts to chinos and bomber jackets at prices more affordable than you might expect. Bomber style. Yeah, nice. A few months ago, I ordered just a classic white dress shirt. You need that in your wardrobe from Indochino. Extremely impressed with the customization of it all. Website super easy to use. Just uploaded my hashtag skinny guy measurements. Boom, we're laughing. Every piece is made to your exact measurements, and you can customize every detail. Choose everything about your suit, including the fabric, lapel, monogram, and statement linings. Create a suit that fits you and your style perfectly. Best part, Indochino's suits start from just $429, and shirts from $79. That's all that cost me for that classic white dress shirt. So this wedding season, dress to impress on every occasion with Indochino. And you can get $50 off any purchase of $3.99 or more by using our promo code NODUNKS at Indochino.com. That's 50 FinDogs off a purchase of $3.99 or more at INDOCHINO.com. Promo code NODUNKS.
Back with no breaks. We got pumpernickel on the table. Graydon, I noticed you didn't go in for a second bite during the break.
Left, my throat was a little dry after that. It made the first segment a little difficult. I kind of wish I had a glass of water the whole time.
Maybe that's how Toto has so much energy. He orders pumpernickel toast at every breakfast, so he has to wash it down with coffee, and he's just jacked for the rest of the day. Anyways, we're going to take a look at some of the news around the F1 world. Our first little piece comes from the FIA, who released their findings of the analysis of what happened during last season's climactic Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
What did happen?
What did happen? Some safety car shenanigans is what happened. Some human error, as they say. What was your takeaway from this document from the FIA?
I mean, nothing in the document itself surprised me. I had no expectation that they were going to claim that something other than the outcome that did happen really happened. They acknowledged some fault and things like that. For me, the most peculiar part of it was the timing. They released this document 30 minutes before qualifying started on the first race of the season. Like, why? I guess that's a news dump in an attempt to release it and cover it up with excitement about the race, but it also just seems to dredge up bad memories at the exact wrong time. So I don't know. I thought it was weird timing.
Yeah, definitely weird timing. I remember on last week's show, I was like, isn't it weird that they waited so long to replace Massey as the race director? They did it like a week before the season started. This is even weirder to drop like obviously a controversial ending last season, to come out with this sort of report on what happened. Not even really. It's just a bunch of bullet points about a report that's theoretically out there. The second to last bullet stuck out to me. The process of identifying lapped cars has up until now been a manual one, and human error led to the fact that not all cars were allowed to unlap themselves.
This is also, first of all, very shocking that was a manual process up until now, that there wasn't some digital thing or whatever that told you, all the cars are unlapped or
They've
something
got like 9,000 buttons on pit.
Yeah, there's so much technology.
Couldn't put
This
one
just
sensor in there?
insane layers and layers of technology, and then there's a guy like sitting there like counting the cars as they go by. But also that's total BS though, right? I mean, Michael Massey knew exactly what he was doing. Yeah. He let exactly a specific set of cars through so as to allow that, Max and Lewis to race. It's ridiculous to think that only 6 of the cars have been lapped. I just think that just patently false, but a perfectly nice bullet to add into a report like this.
Yeah, totally. The rule has been changed. Any is now officially all, and like we said, Massey has been replaced. So to me, they're kind of saying, yeah, things were botched last year, and we got rid of everything about that, so let's just move on. And guess what? Qualifying starting right now. You want to watch that?
It's
going to be awesome. The cars are totally different.
And the Sky Sports team, I think, kind of played into that. I didn't hear anybody mentioning the report.
Yeah, exactly.
More than that, they did make some cracks about, which cars had been lapped or weren't lapped. I heard some of those jokes on
got the safety car right at the end, right? I think it was Ted Kravitz. He's like, oh, no, I can't do it.
They slipped in a couple of comments there, but, they're... Yeah. So hopefully that is all a smoother process going forward.
Hopefully we get a safety car like the last 5 laps every single
race.
Like, oh no, did we count them right? We shall see. Our second piece of news comes from @AdamCooperF1 on Twitter. The tweet says, new F1 race director Niels Wittich has told teams that he won't be asking drivers to give a place back for gaining an advantage. Team and driver have to decide themselves if they're in the wrong and might be penalized if they don't cede the place. How can this possibly work? If it's up to the teams to determine if they did something wrong.
Well, I guess it's yeah, this is interesting. First of all, I don't think we actually saw this rule in practice.
I don't think so.
Unless it happened at some point in the midfield and they just didn't pay attention, it didn't come up. But the only penalty I think was Ocon, colliding with Schumacher, right? But this weekend we very much might see it come into play because turn 1 in Saudi Arabia is where we saw multiple people cut it to gain an advantage last season. So it does seem like this will very plausibly come up this upcoming weekend. I guess people will just have to make a judgment call, but there's no... The interesting thing is the race director is not the one handing them the penalties in the first place, right? He is not the race stewards. So when he's asking people to give a place back, he's actually, I guess, making a judgment call presuming what a different group of people is going to think about an incident. So he's making a lot of assumptions, right? So in this instance, they're just saying, I'm not going to make those assumptions. You can take action to try to prevent that. But maybe the long-term goal of this is just to discourage activities where, you might gain an advantage and then just give it back. Because what you also saw was Max, and this came up in Drive to Survive, but giving back a position at a highly strategic moment. Like,
I love it.
Gaining an advantage, giving it back right before a DRS detection zone or right before a section of the track where maybe your car has the edge, and then immediately regaining the advantage. That's something that, although in this instance, I think it ended in Hamilton, I think, hitting him or so, them running into each other, right?
Course.
But that's been something people have done in the past. So I think saying we're not going to allow you to do that either, which is basically preserving the advantage you gained from the initial, the initial violation, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's definitely, it'll be tricky and will lead to some confusion and a little bit of chaos, which I'm kind of a fan of. I'm a little bit of a fan of on-track chaos. So.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be like a big chaos element to it, because I kind of think the default will be like you're saying. Like, you're going to want to give back the position just because you don't know what's coming further down the line. So you'll do it strategically, like the Max Verstappen DRS zone sort of thing. But some team's going to be the first to be like, no, we earned that right.
We're off.
And then they're going to have misread the situation in the stewards' minds, and then they're going to come down with a penalty afterwards, and that's like, uh-oh, that's going to be drama. And yeah, it's a lot of chaos could ensue.
Well, he also went in that series of tweets to say that I believe they have only one lap to give it back, which is actually pretty fast. I think sometimes you see these debates last season with Michael Massey, carrying on for a couple of laps, right? It like kind of turned into an extended back and forth about what they would do and when they would do it, or even sometimes not giving back a place, but just returning the advantage gained, like when Hamilton just, I guess, technically slowed up to allow Max Verstappen to close the gap. That was a very confusing one. So I think they're just trying to say that all of that messiness is gone. If you break a rule, you can either correct it or get penalized, but I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. We haven't yet to see how it happens yet.
Call your own fouls.
Call your own fouls.
Call your own fouls
This
in
is a
Formula
call your own
One.
foul.
That's gonna be crazy. I can't wait to see it actually happen. Next up comes from Artosport.com. Carlos Sainz reaches an agreement over new Ferrari F1 contract. Now, apparently this isn't signed quite yet, but Sainz says, "I think we are close, very close, very, very close, very close, extremely close, nearly there." How ironclad
Are you saying they're close?
Is an F1 contract, Graydon? But they're pretty close here. They're pretty close. We haven't found a pen.
It sounds close.
He's like, very, 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 very. But here's my question for you. How ironclad are F1 contracts? Because after the Bahrain GP, you saw a lot of people saying, uh-oh, Lando Norris is signed to a 4-year contract with McLaren, and look how poorly they performed in round one. Is it the same? Is it like, is this?
It's not like an NBA deal quite in the same way, right? You do see people break contracts or, move. There's penalties involved. It's not exactly the same, but it's, but in the instance of Carlos Sainz, where he's driving for his dream team at the top of the grid now, I think you can be pretty confident that they're locking in their duo for multiple years to come. It's a pretty smart move by them, honestly, because I think they've got almost the ideal driver duo, which is a guy with a super high ceiling and then a guy with a super high floor. So there's kind of like a baseline that they're providing every race, and then a guy who can jump out there and compete with the very best every race. And that's a great combo to have. So it's smart. But if something were to go terribly awry, I mean, I think they could get out of it. Although that also, to be quite honest, might be contract to contract.
Sure.
I mean, I think that there's just not nearly as much standardization because there's not a collective bargaining agreement and things like that they're operating within they're operating within. So.
Yeah. Do you foresee Sainz? I mean, it's too early to tell, but do you foresee Sainz being able to push Leclerc for championships, or is this going to end up similar to Mercedes, where you've got the championship winner and then you've got the reliable guy who everybody's saying, "Oh, is this the year? Is this the year?"
It's a great question. I think you have to say Sainz can do it. He beat him last year. I mean,
Yep.
he finished at him in the point standings last year. To say he can't do it, to me, it feels patently false in the sense that he's already beaten him once. So that being said, I expect Leclerc to outperform him this year. I expect Leclerc to probably be the de facto number one driver, even if maybe he's not on paper, and you hear that in the way that Binotto talks about the two of them. He when he talks about them, he talks about how like a consistent, good driver Sainz is, and then he talks about what a phenomenal, complete, like excellent driver Leclerc is. He clearly just has a huge crush on Charles Leclerc and thinks he's the guy that can bring home a title. So I think that will, but. we also don't know that we're seeing signs of ceiling yet. And he could definitely hook it up. And certainly the hunger to do more is there. He's not resting on his laurels. He's not sitting there being content with what they've achieved. If anything, quite the opposite. He seemed incredibly unhappy with an excellent result this past weekend. So.
Yeah, they've got a nice looking squad, and it looks like they got them locked up for quite some time. So Ferrari, they're 100% back, baby. Our final thing is not really news, but it is new. We got a new graphics package for the race over the weekend. You see here on YouTube on the left, we've got the 2022 timing tower, if you will, and on the right, we've got the previous timing tower. This did not seem to go over too well with the F1 crowd, Graydon.
I'm not a fan. To me, it feels like this is like the difference between like graphic design and information design. It's like, I get it,
Totally.
It looks cool, but it's actually like kind of hard to navigate. I think having their team logos was better.
Yeah.
I think that it's harder to read their position numbers than it was before, and I think having them the position numbers and then their car numbers right next to one another is just a little bit messy. I don't know that their car numbers are all that useful.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that you sometimes you got to glance at the number to distinguish between Verstappen
Sure.
and Perez or something, but also just where they are on track or what the announcer is saying at that moment completely clarifies who you're looking at, you know? So I don't know. It seems to me like the only thing that I would say is a definitive improvement is it seems like they have the tire type up there more constantly.
Sure.
Which I like, because sometimes it's
important.
you forget that, you know, but I don't know. I definitely there's room for improvement here.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that the new look probably looks cooler, like looks a little bit slicker, but the previous iteration of the timing tower like gave you everything you actually needed to know. And like you're saying, like there were quite a few Lewis Hamilton number 44 football jerseys, like American football jerseys in the crowd over the weekend, but you don't see Formula One like driver numbers showing up all that much. So, you know, Verstappen did switch to the old number 1 this year he's the champion. So yeah, bring back the team logos. But like I said, according to Twitter, this was not a well done replacement here. So maybe there will be tinkering on down the line. We've seen them, you know, do all kinds of new cameras and new graphics throughout the season anyway. So hopefully they'll change it up a little bit here, but we want to know from you. Let us know what you think about any of that news, those new graphics, and if you were going to pick a Formula One number, what would you wear? What would you wear?
Ooh, 5. Just number 5.
Just 5? Vettel was 5? Is that right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
He might have been.
I'm just. That's my lucky number.
5's your lucky number?
My lucky number.
I'm a 13. I don't know if that's bad luck for on the track though.
Yeah, but I like it. I think it's like a reverse jinx. It's
Yeah,
like
a
embrace
reverse jinx.
the 13.
What about you, JD?
Oh, I'm 7. 7 all the way.
There you go.
7.
Yeah.
7.
My lucky number.
No even number. All odds here. I like that.
Yeah, totally.
like that.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
I like that.
Makes a difference how fast your car goes. But we're going to take a quick, fast break here when we come back. Talking about the Saudi Arabian GP next weekend. And we both finished Drive to Survive Season 4, so we'll talk about that as well. Stick around.
Guys, figuring out what's for dinner is way too stressful. Here's how it goes around here. Hey, what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? I'll eat anything.
Oh, that's the worst one to hear for sure.
Thank goodness for Green Chef. What? You thought I was going to say HelloFresh, didn't you? Green Chef, the sexy new meal kit in town. Just kidding. Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, so the second smartest acquisition this year after the New York Times took on the Athletic. So what do you get with Green Chef and HelloFresh? A wider selection of meal plans to choose from. There's something for literally everyone. I cannot speak today. Green Chef is America's #1 meal kit for eating well with dinners that work for you, not the other way around. Green Chef's options for every lifestyle include keto and paleo, vegan, vegetarian, fast and fit, Mediterranean, that intrigues me, and gluten-free. The meals are legit good. Last week, I should say, we had the mozzarella stuffed pork meatloaves.
Oh, yeah.
Those are good.
I had that.
And the teriyaki turkey rice bowls. Man, bangers, both of them. And super easy to make. all the ingredients are pre-portioned, so not only does it simplify the process, you'll actually reduce your food waste by at least 25% compared to grocery shopping. So go to greenchef.com/NoDunks130. NoDunks130 and use code NoDunks130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. That's crazy.
Whoa.
That's greenchef.com/NoDunks130 and use code NoDunks130 to get $130 off plus free shipping.
Thanks to Edmunds for sponsoring the show. I bought a car last year, and if I had known about Edmunds.com, then I wouldn't have spent so much time on a bunch of other sites instead of just doing all my research in one spot. If you're anything like me, you don't know a lot about all the cars out there. Edmunds got some cool features. It has video test drives that really give you a feel of the car. I would have used that. Honest car reviews, which don't have any brand bias, and the latest consumer advice. I didn't find these features on other sites. Maybe I bought the wrong car. Tell me, Edmunds. Did I make a grave mistake? I actually would have loved to check out their long-term road test. This is also very cool before buying my car. Edmunds drives a car for a year and about 20,000 miles while making videos about it along the way. Giving you some long-term perspective on owning a car. Over 50 years of trusted car shopping advice and price guidance all in one place. Get empowered to make the best decisions. Get confident with free online tools to help you compare vehicles and dealer quotes, figure out your budget and financing, and get an appraisal for your trade-in. A lot of stuff on Edmunds.com. Car shopping can be overwhelming. Edmunds is here to help. Visit Edmunds.com and click on Edmunds Best Car Rankings to research and compare vehicles. That's EDMUNDS.com. Edmunds. We drive it like it is.
Some great stuff from the Slipstream team here on YouTube talking about driver numbers. Great comment from Andreas Moll, who says when they were still numbering the cars after the place in the Constructors' Championship, they skipped 13 because of superstition, went straight from 12 to 14 and 15. There's a lane for me there, Graydon.
That's where you slip right in.
I'm the guy who's not worried about bad luck. I'm not worried about bad luck on a racetrack. I don't know.
That you do see that sometimes. Like you go into like a building sometimes,
Yep.
and there's just like you go straight from 12 to 14 or something. It's I get it.
That's right.
You just don't. Why risk it?
You can never find a 13th floor in a hotel. No chance.
Why risk it?
Pastor Maldonado apparently wore 13 back in the day. Is he any good?
Yeah, I love Pastor.
Yeah, big
He's
fan
great.
as well. Yeah, that's why I'm
he's
wearing
great.
13 on my car.
Yeah.
We got another race this weekend, starting off with back-to-back jacks. I love it. We're going to Saudi Arabia for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Just the second time that they've raced there. Last year's podium, Hamilton, Verstappen, and Bottas there for Mercedes. Graydon, what can you tell us about the Saudi Arabian GP?
So this is a road course, right? Pretty much the fastest road course in F1, and it's very narrow. It's very high stakes. We saw a lot of action during qualifying testing there last year. There's some very tricky moments on this course. That in particular, the race down to turn 1, which is like a very sharp left and right. You're going to see a lot. It's a very tight fit.
This is skinny.
Yeah, it's a very tight fit for everybody. I think this is interesting because last year you saw Mercedes kind of outpacing Red Bull on the straights with the superior engine, and you saw Red Bull picking up tons of time in the second sector and where they had just a ton of pace with their very high downforce car. This year it seems like it's almost reversed. You saw Ferrari had tons of pace in the corners, and then Red Bull was the one that was catching up and showing tons of power down the straights. So I'll be interested to see, does Red Bull kind of, but in the long run, the track favored Mercedes. So you have to think, maybe is this a chance for Red Bull to strike back if they can fix their reliability issues? Can they, certainly expect Max to be back battling for a podium. But they might have the upper hand here. It's a little tough to tell given how new the cars are. But I wouldn't be surprised if Max actually takes number 1 this weekend.
Is it realistic to expect improvements for Red Bull? Obviously we don't know, but like the issues that they had during the Bahrain GP, like they've only got a week to fix it. I mean, really, 5.5 days until it's qualifying. And then it's race day. That's a quick turnaround to figure out a problem that left you with no points after a weekend.
Yeah, I mean it's it's tough to tell just how complicated it is. Maybe it's actually a shockingly simple fix, like relocating an element. Maybe it's actually very, very complicated and will take them a few weeks to solve. But the reality is the only way to score points is to bring your car across the line. So they've got to find a way to maintain their reliability. They were also right there. So it's not as if they, so it makes me think that maybe small tweaks could be sufficient to get it there. But I don't know. It's I guess we'll find out. It's certainly going to be, as the race drags on and we get towards the end, I assure you it'll be something that Crofty and Brundle and everybody else in the broadcast is mentioning and has in the back of their mind, wondering, is something going to go awry? So.
How long do parts take in the F1 world? I heard a ton of talk about parts. We got to get parts in. We got to figure out these parts. We need parts to handle our porpoising. I'm thinking of Mercedes here specifically. To me, I think there was a report from Ted Kravitz where he said he doesn't think that Mercedes is really going to have an update to their car until the Imola Grand Prix. So it could be 3 weeks or so of them of being the third place team out there.
Yeah. So I think that there's like two answers to that question. It's like parts in some sense are very fast in the sense that they have incredible manufacturing capabilities and can build these incredibly custom elements. And you actually saw Mercedes completely reimagine their side pods in between Barcelona and Bahrain testing. So that was a big evolution in a very small period of time. Oppositely, like sometimes parts, it's not as if it's just about the part itself, it's all the cascading elements that are related to it. And to change one thing has ramifications across the car. And really what you're doing is like a major rethinking of the way, air is flowing over an entire section or a whole system of parts is interacting. And then I think that's where things get complicated and changes take a really long time, is it's this like domino effect of like things you got to change to accommodate this one thing that you have to change. So that's where Red Bull actually could get tricky is are they going to have to actually do a bunch of work to fix what seems like a comparatively minor element? I honestly don't know. But that's also where I think Mercedes is stuck a little bit, is that the suggestion is there's not a quick fix, and they're going to have to iterate on multiple elements of the car and then bring those back to working in concert with one another in order to be battling back for the very top.
Yeah, I think Russell said something similar where he's like, we didn't want to change too much and confuse ourselves, because if there's several things wrong and you change them all at the same time, maybe you just got a whole new grip of things that are wrong, which would obviously be a problem. How soon do you think teams are going to change their mind on like side pod designs? Because like Mercedes, like we said, skinny. Theirs looks, more like triangular shaped almost. And then like you got like obviously a wider
like a
Ferrari
boxier
side
one.
pod. And there's like, you can find photos on Twitter of the Red Bull engineers just like standing and admiring the Ferrari. Like, ooh, that looks beautiful. That's obviously like a huge design component, the shape of your car and the way that the air is flowing over it. But if one team is doing it right, and if you're Mercedes and you're one of the Mercedes customer teams and you're like, our car looks different and it's not performing as well as all these faster cars, how quickly do you be like, all right, we got to change track here?
You probably, some of them I think are already thinking that, right? They're like, okay, they're already back at the factory. I'm not saying they're throwing out the designs, but they're like, okay, we have to make some major changes. This isn't iterating on like a foundational design here to a point of optimizing it, which is probably more where Ferrari and Red Bull are at. They're thinking, cool, we have a great base. Let's improve all the little component parts. I think that you see teams make changes very fast, like Alpine, not to the side pod itself, but to kind of the rear of the side pod, the slope and angle of it. That changed, I think, in between testing and the race. So just within 1 week, there was a component of the body shape that they changed. Teams can turn around changes pretty fast. It's just like you've got to be confident that there's not going to be negative, unexpected byproducts. And it's not as easy to be confident of that. It's not super easy to be confident of that. So it's just little tweaks have big impacts. So, but we'll see if they can turn it around, how quickly they can turn it around. You do see teams make really big leaps mid-season. And so, and honestly, even Mercedes last year, you could say that their evolution from race 1 to Abu Dhabi was massive.
Big time.
They clearly were the second fastest car on the track. Red Bull easily had the best car to start the season. And by the end, Mercedes had the better car. They were the faster car at the end of the year.
Yeah, funny moment in Drive to Survive when they're talking about how much faster the Mercedes car was in the second half of the season. Lewis is like, hey, I did some good laps, okay? I'm a decent driver. But I guess we'll see how it plays out on track. It seems to me, though, we will be looking at similar top twos in Ferrari and Red Bull with everybody else trying to battle it out.
I think that's right.
But we'll see on Sunday. So we got the race on Sunday, qualifying Saturday, practice Friday. Graydon, I finished Drive to Survive Season 4. I saw your tweet during the week. You wish we would have waited until we both had watched the Yuki Tsunoda episode to record our preseason preview. That episode is hilarious. The guy hates where he lives.
Hates it.
The guy hates the food he's eating. He hates working out, but he loves going fast. I was like, this guy gets it. Laura, we were watching him like get into his car, getting ready to just drive around Milton Keynes. And Laura's like, do you think Formula One drivers just always drive fast? And then like as soon as she said it, Yuki peels out backwards and he's just doing roundabouts as fast as he possibly can. I'm like, I think they do. I think they just drive as fast as possible. Maybe it's just him though.
He is incredible.
He is incredible.
He is so foul-mouthed. He is so, like, the most rated R episode of the whole show. I feel like he just cannot help himself. And then somebody said because he learned the English around, like, engineers and mechanics and things like that. So, like, I don't know. He's great. The food stuff is great. I would love a Yuki Tsunoda cooking show.
Oh,
or like a Stanley Tucci Italy, like he goes to Italy, but with Yuki Tsunoda traveling around, just being like furious, just sprinting in a car from place to place, like eating food and like cussing everybody out the whole time. It'd be incredible, actually.
Yeah. So we had the Yuki episode. We also had the George Russell versus Valtteri Bottas episode. Wow. Didn't think George came off great in that.
He came off terribly.
Yeah.
My God, I kind of liked George, or I still do kind of like George.
Yeah.
I feel like people do. And then coming into that episode, I was like, good God, he's just very entitled. He seems very, like, this is just a terrible look.
Yeah, he looked very pouty. They got him with some of the editing stuff.
They crushed him on
I was feeling bad for Bottas, for sure.
Yeah.
And also, it's like, to me, it seemed like it was made into way bigger of a decision for Toto than it probably really was, especially like having, watched through the season where we're just kind of waiting for Russell to be announced. But maybe there was a little bit of hesitation after they touched up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was. I guess it's right. I think that they featured very briefly Hamilton making a comment about how Bottas was an excellent second driver. And that, there was some rumors that behind the scenes Hamilton had no interest in replacing Bottas. He was more than happy with keeping him, which, maybe has to give Toto pause. But yeah, it always felt inevitable. People saw that coming from 100 miles away. But what are you going to do? It's a TV show. You got to make it seem exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason that Max Verstappen didn't want to be into Drive to Survive Season 4, which is too bad. He would have been a great addition to the last couple of episodes, which were all about the championship shootout with Lewis Hamilton. Though I will say I thought Netflix did a really good job of like keeping Verstappen in things. Like they have him, at like the Red Bull party talking about the race the next night, that kind of thing. There's a lot of Max Verstappen in it. Even though he's not actually a talking head, so I thought that was pretty cool.
And stuff. They do a good job.
I thought it was crazy seeing like we heard the radio calls when they happened, but now you're seeing like Michael Massey talking back to Toto and Christian. You're seeing Toto freak out in the paddock. I thought that was cool to see. And I'll be honest, seeing Max Verstappen, it made me less of a Max hater. Less so than I thought I was gonna be. I thought I was gonna be seething mad again at the end of these episodes, but I was more like, hey, you know what? He deserved to win the championship on the whole of the season. The decision just happened to go his way, but it wasn't really anything of his doing. He was in a place where it's like, okay, I have an easy win for the championship here. I got to take it. Of course you do.
No, yeah, I agree that it wasn't as if Max did anything. I think probably somewhat appropriately, you probably come away from that show, as we said last week, thinking of Christian Horner as the villain, who is probably the person who you should blame for, probably inappropriately influencing, Massey to make an ill-advised decision. But I think that that's, I think Verstappen's fine. But I do think he's a good heel. Them as a collective are a good heel.
Yeah.
You know, his like very cool, you know, very, you know, unemotional kind of response to everything. You know, he's like hyper Dutch, very like stone faced. You know, hyper competitive approach is great. Horner's, you know, constantly twisting the knife is great. Red Bull's a great bad guy. They're a great bad guy. So and they will be again this season, I think.
Yeah, and we gotta say, it ends with a great quote from Toto. Every team has a target on their back while wearing a black turtleneck and a black suit. Did they tell him?
Looking
like, hey,
a
man,
James Bond
come in,
villain.
Look as villainous as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was somebody. Yeah, he probably came in like a t-shirt or something. They were like, no, you need to change. Somebody has gotta. Yeah, that was. I thought a tad heavy-handed, but still great.
Yeah, give it to us one more time. That didn't sound scary enough.
Yeah, a tad.
I find myself so much watching like the Talking Heads interviews, just being like, when did they record this? Like, when are they getting the quotes from Christian and Toto in between qualifying and in between qualifying and when the race actually starts? You know, I'm like, there are times when I think I see Christian Horner wearing a white button-down shirt, and I know he was wearing a white button-down shirt underneath a blue sweater, and his face looks a little more red, so I'm like, oh, I bet he was getting hot from wearing that sweater.
But sometimes I think
the dumbest stuff.
Okay, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like some of it's a little bit like reality TV, where they just go back and you're well, not a little bit. It is reality TV, but it's there, you know, and making you comment on things as if it's real time. I feel like some of that must happen just after the season. Yeah, and they just go back and they're like in the first person as if it's present day. Tell me about the crash at, you know, Monza or whatever, and it's like, well, these guys, they're so competitive or whatever, you know. So I feel like that's a little bit of it.
Yeah, no doubt. Another great season, fun to watch. I was happy to jam it in there too, right before we actually got started.
Same. I think I finished it like Saturday morning before qualifying. I think I literally finished it like 5 minutes before qualifying.
Right at the last second. I don't blame you. That's what I was doing too. I was doing mine Saturday night because I was like, I can't leave this. I can't leave this till after the race started. But that's about it for No Breaks. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. Make sure you follow Graydon on Twitter at Mr. Gordian. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, wherever at No Dunks Inc. Feel free to subscribe to The Athletic at theathletic.com/NoDunks. Only $1 a month for the next 6 months. And please send us some emails. Hit us up at nodunks@theathletic.com. Put No Breaks, Formula One, fast cars, pumpernickel toast, whatever you want to put into the subject, we will find it. We should be on a new channel, new podcast feed next week, but please just stay tuned to that. Obviously, we'll be active on Twitter, letting everybody know where to find the show. Clipper Bros.
You heard it here first. Have a great time. Turn up. Love you guys. Awesome.
Stay speedy, people. Vroom, vroom.